The alarm started before anyone had time to scream. It wasn't the polite sort of noise that said, "Attention, something might be wrong." This was the kind that carved straight into bone and told every living thing nearby, "Run." By the time the station's central market knew what was happening, 3 human children were gone. Not lost, taken. Gone like a pulled tooth, with the same sharp absence left behind. The security feeds showed flashes of metallic limbs, the slithering gait of Empire enforcement units, and the children's faces, calm in a way that made the onlookers more uneasy than their capture. The youngest, a girl of 6, clutched a cloth doll. The boy of 8 held her free hand. The oldest, 10, walked ahead, scanning everything the way a farmer checks a fence line after storm. No struggling, no screaming. Just watching. They were marched through docking bays under the hiss of hydraulics and the murmur of alien voices. A dozen species stood aside, pretending not to see. Nobody stopped the procession. Inside the shuttle, the air was dry and metallic. Commander Vorketh, whose scaled face could express only degrees of contempt, stood at the controls. His armor gleamed, a ceremonial touch for what he considered a ceremonial errand. "Cargo secure," his aide reported. "They look smaller than the reports," Vorketh replied, his voice carrying that easy arrogance of someone who had never been outmatched. "Fragile. Soft. They will not last long if negotiations fail." The aide glanced at the children through the force barrier. "They are quiet." Vorketh smirked. "Fear renders most creatures quiet. It will not matter. In a matter of days, their mother will kneel." The eldest child shifted slightly, leaning against the barrier as though bored. "Do you have big animals on your planet?" he asked conversationally. His voice was clear, deliberate. Vorketh turned. "What?" "Big animals," the boy repeated. "Like with teeth. Bigger than your head. Fast enough to chase you if you ran." The girl of 6 piped up without looking away from her doll. "We've seen those before. Mama says you never turn your back to something that can eat you." Vorketh's aide barked a laugh. "Your mother sounds like a coward." The oldest boy smiled without showing teeth. "She's not scared of anything. Not even the things she can't kill." The aide shifted, uncertain. Vorketh waved him off. "Do not engage them. Their words are designed to manipulate sympathy." But the children didn't look like they were fishing for sympathy. They looked like they were making notes. In the cargo hold, where the barrier was thickest, the siblings spoke in voices just above a whisper. "North wall single entry," the boy murmured. "3 guards, maybe 4, said the 8-year-old. "They're lazy. They have guns," the little girl said softly. "Guns don't help if you don't know where to point them," her brother replied. "Mama says that too." The shuttle made its jump into deep space, leaving behind a station buzzing with speculation. Some believed the Empire had taken the children to force human cooperation in border disputes. Others thought it was a warning to Earth's council to stop interfering in Imperial research. No one, not even the Empire, considered the possibility that the children weren't the weak link. On the 3rd day, the children were transferred to a holding complex on a cold moon with a blue-white horizon. The guards cycled their shifts with mechanical precision, avoiding conversation beyond what was necessary. The siblings stayed quiet, answering questions with a flat courtesy of those who have nothing to prove. "Why are you so calm?" one of the guards asked finally, a wide-eyed avian whose beak clicked when she was nervous. "You know your mother will never find you here." The 8-year-old grinned like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all week. "She found a snow leopard in a blizzard once. Took her 4 hours. The avian frowned. "A snow leopard?" The little girl leaned forward. "Big cat. Big teeth. Bigger than you." The guard stepped back. Vorketh observed all this from the command balcony above the cells. He told himself it was irrelevant. Animals and their trainers were irrelevant once they were caged. And yet he didn't like the way these human young met his eyes, as though calculating distance, posture, escape routes. "Humans," he muttered to his aide, "are the only species that smile while they measure you for a coffin." The aide shivered. Across the galaxy, in a vessel no bigger than a scout ship, Mara Keen leaned over a star chart. Her hair was tied back, her sleeves rolled, her voice steady. They're moving them to a Class 4 containment zone. That means 2 shield generators, one external, one internal. They'll have been overconfident enough to put the control nodes in plain sight. She took a sip of coffee, eyes on the readout. The ship's AI hesitated. You are calm, Marquine. I'm annoyed, she corrected mildly. Calm is what you are before the work starts. And what is the work? She smiled faintly. Bringing my kids home and reminding the galaxy that you don't touch a Huntress's cubs. Her fingers tapped a small display, the one the children had keyed into the cargo hold wall before departure. The code was simple, temperature readings that, when plotted, mapped their exact location. She had taught them that years ago, when they used to track wolves in the Rockies for wildlife relocation. The AI processed this, tone sharpening. They left you a trail. They always do, Mara said. Predators leave signs. So do my kids. In the Imperial Holding Complex, Vorketh received a secure message from the capital. Do not underestimate human mothers. He deleted it unread. That night, the youngest asked a guard for a bedtime story. The guard, half amused, obliged with a folk tale from his homeworld. When it ended, she asked, Do you know what happens to a hunter who forgets to watch the shadows? What? The guard said. They get eaten, she replied, curling up with her doll. By morning, the guards were whispering, not about the children, but about the strange, quiet woman who had been asking questions in border markets, trading for maps, buying equipment she shouldn't need. A woman with the kind of stillness predators recognize. In the detention bay, the 10-year-old was teaching his sister how to count guard footsteps. The 8-year-old was prying a loose strip from the bench's metal siding. None of them looked frightened. Vorketh passed by, pausing. What is it you think you're doing? The boy met his eyes. Waiting. For what? The child's answer was so soft the commander almost missed it. For her to get here. A warning light flickered on Vorketh's wrist display. Unidentified vessel in restricted space. Small. Fast. Ignoring hails. Vorketh dismissed it. Smugglers wandered too close sometimes. They never stayed. In her cockpit, Mara Keen adjusted her course, voice calm as a lullaby. Almost there, she murmured, not to herself, not to the AI, but to the 3 small figures she could already picture in her mind. On the moon's horizon, the sun edged upward, casting the holding complex in sharp relief. Somewhere in its cold corridors, 3 pairs of human eyes watched the guards change shifts. Outside, a ship cut through the void, unhurried and certain. The youngest pressed her face to the cell wall, smiling faintly. She's close. How do you know? The guard asked, uneasy. Because the air feels different, she said, right before a predator arrives. The transmission came through on an unsecured channel, raw and jagged, a voice trying to be calm but breaking on the edges. Mara, they've taken them. For a moment there was nothing. No curse, no outburst, just the slow, steady inhale of someone who had already imagined this moment 100 times and hated herself for being right. Mara Keen closed her eyes, the world narrowing to the weight of those words. She was in a docking bay on Very Station, halfway through a routine supply run, when the message landed. The cargo manifest in her hand fluttered once before she folded it neatly, set it aside, and stood. The trader she'd been bargaining with started to speak, but one look at her face shut him up. Where? She asked. The voice on the other end hesitated. Empire Enforcement Shuttle. They're headed for a moon facility, Class 4. No one comes back from there. Mara's lips curved, not in amusement, but the kind of expression you might mistake for amusement until you saw her eyes. They will. She didn't run. She didn't waste motion. Every step she took toward her ship was measured, her body moving with the unhurried certainty of a predator closing the distance to its prey. A crew of dock workers, laughing a moment before, went silent as she passed. Some recognized her, though most had only heard the stories. Inside her ship, the air was cool and dim. The AI flickered to life as she entered. Mara Keen, it greeted tone neutral. Your fuel reserves are at 68%. Your scheduled route. Cancel it, she said, stripping off her jacket and dropping into the pilot's chair. We have a retrieval. The AI hesitated. My children. The words were flat, without the rise or fall of fear, but the ship's sensors caught her pulse spike. Coordinates fed into the console. The AI ran probability models in silence before saying, Class 4 means. 2 shield generators, external and internal. Control nodes are always in redundant positions. Sloppy builders leave one near the main power spine. You've been there before. I've been everywhere before. Her hands moved across the console, initiating a burn. The stars beyond the viewport elongated, the ship sliding into faster than light, as though the universe had simply agreed to get out of her way. For the first hour, she didn't speak. Her mind was a map, routes, vulnerabilities, pressure points. She replayed the feed she'd managed to intercept. Her children walking between armored guards, their faces calm, eyes busy. They'd done exactly what she taught them. Observe before you move. At the second hour, she opened a private channel. The face that appeared was an old acquaintance, if the word could stretch far enough to fit. Karoth, an information broker whose tentacles twitched when he lied, smiled thinly. Mara, I heard about your inconvenience. Moon facility, she said. Class 4. Give me the schematics. Karoth made a show of leaning back. That's expensive data, and the Empire doesn't take kindly to those who. She tilted her head, voice still soft. Do you remember the time I found you in the wastelands after those dead hunters took your ship apart? Do you remember how long you'd been running? Karotha's smile faltered. I tracked you by the way you breathed, Mara continued. You were gasping. Most things do that right before they die. I followed the sound until I found you. I could do that again. Or, she leaned closer to the feed, I could decide not to. Silence. Then, with a resigned flick of his tentacles, Karoth transmitted the files. You'll owe me. I don't owe anyone. She closed the channel. The schematics unfolded in blue light before her. She traced the lines, noting entry points, chokeholds, and the access vents narrow enough for a child but not a guard. She memorized them the way other people memorize lullabies. On the third hour, she docked at a refueling outpost. A crew of rough-skinned smugglers eyed her ship as she stepped out. Their leader, a squat man with tusks, ambled over. Nice ride, he said. Too nice to be here, without an escort. I'm not without one, Mara replied, brushing past him toward the supply counter. His hand shot out to block her path. Where you headed? She looked at the hand, then at him. Away from here. You. The smuggler laughed, but the sound was too loud, too brittle. You've got a mouth on you. You've got one on you too, she said. You should keep it shut before something bites it off. That earned her a clear path to the counter. She paid in silence, left with a crate of power cells, and boarded without looking back. Behind her, the smugglers muttered, but none followed. Predators recognize predators, even when they don't know the species. By the 6th hour, she was in restricted space. Imperial patrols hailed her 3 times. She ignored all 3. They didn't fire. No one ever seemed willing to be the one who started the wrong kind of trouble. At the holding complex, Commander Vorketh received a status ping from the perimeter. Unidentified vessel has entered Zone Delta, his aide reported. Destroy it, Vorketh said without looking up from his console. The aide hesitated. They're not responding to hails, but they're also not altering course. They're moving like, he trailed off. Like what? Like they've been here before. Vorketh glanced at the vessel's profile, shrugged. A smuggler. The defenses will handle it. But Mara's ship wasn't flying to be handled. She skimmed the edges of their detection range, threading through gaps the schematics had revealed, shutting down active scans so her approach read like background noise. She adjusted her breathing to match the long, steady rhythms of focus, each inhale marking a milestone closer to the children. She opened a secure frequency and transmitted one line to the facility. You have my children. I'd like them back, please. The message landed in Vorketh's personal queue. He read it twice before scoffing. How quaint. A mother's plea. He sent back a single reply. They are safe. For now. Her answer came within seconds. Thank you for keeping them alive. I'll collect them shortly. Something in the phrasing prickled. There was no bargaining, no question of if only when. It was not the sound of someone asking for mercy. It was the sound of someone announcing arrival. In the cells, the eldest child woke from light doze at the sound of a low hum in the walls. "She's here," he whispered. His brother grinned. Their sister hugged her doll tighter. In the command bay, Vorketh stared at the vessel's telemetry. No weapons active. No shields raised. Just coming. An older officer stepped to his side. "Who's flying that ship?" Vorketh glanced at the registry. "Mara Keen." "Why?" The officer went still. "Because if it's her, you've already lost." Vorketh laughed. "It's one human. It's the wrong human." Mara cut her engines 2 clicks outside the facility's defensive perimeter. In the silence that followed, she sent one last message, her voice warm enough to make the words feel almost gentle. "A wolf doesn't chase prey it can't bring down. But for her cubs, she'll cross the world." Inside the complex, the youngest of her children smiled in her sleep. The docking bay of the Imperial Capital Station was designed to impress. Vaulted ceilings of black alloy, ceremonial banners hanging between columns of light, guards in armor polished until their reflections looked like ghosts. Mara Keen stepped onto the platform as though it were a quiet country porch. Her boots made no sound on the gleaming floor. Her eyes, sharp and patient, swept the space in a single practice pass. Exits, weapon mounts, guard spacing, the slight unevenness of the floor panel near the primary control conduit. She wore no visible weapon. The Empire had insisted she enter unarmed. They didn't understand that her weapon was herself. Commander Vorketh waited with the posture of someone confident this was his arena. "Mara Keen," he said, voice a cold scrape. "The council has granted you an audience. Follow me." "Thank you for the escort," she replied, her tone polite enough to be mistaken for sincere. "I've always wanted to see how your people build their cages." His jaw tightened. He turned without answering, leading her through corridors lined with guards whose eyes tracked her with wary curiosity. Mara's pace never faltered. She walked like she'd been here before, because in a way, she had. Every prison, every fortress, every hunting ground was a variation on the same pattern. They entered the grand hall, a space so large it swallowed sound. The floor was inlaid with the Empire's crest, a predator's claw encircling a world. In the throne-like seat at the far end, Chancellor Ruthless waited, a being of pale, scaled skin, long-limbed, with eyes the color of molten gold. Around them, members of the Imperial Council sat in ascending tiers, their expressions a blend of curiosity and disdain. "Mara Keen," Ruthless said, their voice smooth and carrying. "You've come to negotiate for the return of your offspring." "I've come to collect them," she said evenly. A ripple moved through the chamber. The Chancellor's head tilted. "You speak as though the matter is already decided." "It is." Vorketh stepped forward. "You presume much, human. You're here because we allow it." Mara's eyes flicked at him, calm and cold. "Permission is just a polite word for delay." Laughter stirred among some council members, though it carried an edge, amusement tangled with unease. Mara noted who laughed too quickly, who didn't laugh at all. Every reaction was a tell. "You must understand," the Chancellor said, "that the Empire does not yield to demands. We are offering you the opportunity to plead your case." Mara inclined her head slightly, as if in respect. "Then allow me to start with a story. On my world, there's a kind of hunter who will stalk a herd for days. It never runs at them head-on. It waits, watches, finds the one that will slow the rest down. The herd doesn't even realize it's been marked until the ground shakes under its feet." Ruthless's gaze sharpened. "And which are you, in this metaphor? The hunter or the herd?" Mara's smile was faint, almost kind. "Neither. I'm the one who taught the hunter where to bite." Vorketh's tail lashed once, a twitch of irritation. "Your metaphors won't change the terms. Your children are assets now. We will return them when Earth." "Assets." Mara's voice cut clean through a sentence. She didn't raise it, but the air shifted around her words. "You think they're leverage. You don't know what they are. A council member with silver-plated mandibles leaned forward. "Enlighten us, human. What are they?" "They're my children," Mara said. "And they're better at this game than you are." That drew another ripple, this one darker. She could feel it, the turn, the subtle pivot of the room's attention. She let it hang for a breath before continuing. "While we've been talking, they've been learning your guards' routes, timing the shift changes, noting who rests their hand on their weapon and who forgets to." Vorketha's scoff was too quick, too forced. "Lies." "You could check," Mara said, "but then you'd have to admit you underestimated them. And you won't do that until it's too late." The Chancellor steepled their long fingers. "If this is meant to intimidate us—" "No," Mara interrupted softly. "If I meant to intimidate you, you'd already be gone." Silence folded over the hall. Even the guards seemed to hold still. Mara took a slow step forward, letting the movement draw every eye. "Your mistake wasn't taking them. Your mistake was thinking I would trade for them. I don't make trades. I make collections." Erithus's voice was measured. "You are confident. Too confident, perhaps." "Confidence is thinking you can win," Mara said. "Certainty is knowing the fight was over before you walked in the door." The Chancellor studied her, gold eyes unblinking. "You've come here unarmed, without allies. What certainty can you possibly claim?" Mara's gaze swept the chamber once, then returned to the Chancellor. "Do you keep predators here? Dangerous ones?" "We study them," Erithus said cautiously. Mara nodded, as though confirming something. "Good. Then you understand that a predator will never stay in a cage it can open. The question is, what happens when someone else opens it for them?" A murmur rose among the council, sudden and uneasy. Vorketh moved as if to step closer, but stopped when Mara's eyes locked on him. "Don't," she said. It wasn't a command. It was a truth, spoken like gravity. From somewhere beyond the grand hall, faint but rising, came the echo of an alarm. Not the ceremonial chime of a session closing, the urgent, pulsing tone of a breach. Mara didn't look away from the Chancellor. "That's the sound of your cages opening." Erithus's expression didn't change, but their pupils tightened. "Impossible." "Everything's impossible," Mara said, "until it's already done." Vorketha's comm unit flared with incoming reports. Containment failures in the Predator Research Wing. Armored units being pulled to respond. His jaw tightened as he glanced at her. "What have you done?" "Just level the field," she said. "You build a palace in the heart of your hunting grounds, and forgot the hunt doesn't end just because you say it does." A second alarm joined the first, sharper, closer. This one the guards recognized. They shifted, hands moving toward weapons. Mara took another slow step forward, and every armed figure in the room recalculated the space between them and her. "My children are leaving with me," she said. "What happens to the rest of you depends on how quickly you decide they're no longer worth keeping." The Chancellor's gaze was unreadable, but a single flick of their fingers sent two guards from the room at a run. Whether to secure the children or contain the breach, Mara didn't know. She didn't care. Another ripple moved through the council. Not amusement now, but the dawning awareness that the human standing in their hall was not a petitioner. She was an inevitability. She let the silence stretch until it was taut, then added, almost conversationally, "You still have time to make this look like a gesture of goodwill instead of a surrender." But not much. Vorketha's comm lit again. He ignored it, eyes locked on hers. "You planned this." "Of course," Mara said. "Didn't you?" The Chancellor leaned back in their seat, the faintest trace of something. Respect? Wariness sliding into their gaze. "You speak as though you've already walked out of here with them." Mara's voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber without effort. "I have." Another alarm wailed. Somewhere beyond these walls, 3 children moved through the confusion with the same calm they'd had when taken. Somewhere closer, the first of the freed predators was finding its way into the open corridors of the capital. Mara stood perfectly still, watching the council watch her, and waited for the moment they realized there was no safe choice left. The alarms deepened into something primal, a resonance that made every living thing on the station feel smaller. They weren't just noise now, they were a pulse, a heartbeat from something waking up in the dark. The council chamber shifted from tense formality to low-grade panic, the air sharpening with the scent of adrenaline, fear, and metal heating under strain. Mara didn't move. She stood in the center of the polished floor, letting the sound roll over her like distant thunder. Her stillness was deliberate, her own form of intimidation, forcing the Chancellor, Vorketh, and the Council to measure themselves against the one creature in the room who wasn't flinching. Vorketh's calm unit kept flashing in sharp bursts. He didn't answer the first call or the second. By the third, the Chancellor's gaze cut toward him, and he relented. The voice that spilled out was rushed, cracking. Containment breach in Sector 9. Multiple Apex units active. Guards down, 20 confirmed casualties. The report broke in static, then returned. They're not attacking civilians. They're moving like they're hunting for something. Mara's lips curved in something too controlled to be called a smile. They are. Vorketh's scales darkened. What did you do? I gave them a reason, Mara said. Predators don't waste energy on chaos. They choose a target. They take it apart. The Chancellor's voice was as cold as the void. You've endangered thousands. Mara tilted her head slightly. You endangered mine first. This is just a natural balance correcting itself. Outside the chamber, the sounds of heavy movement drew closer, a steady, measured tread punctuated by the faint rasp of claws on alloy. Guards shifted uneasily, forming lines near the doors. None of them looked sure they wanted to be there. You're bluffing, Vorketh said. This is coincidence. A convenient disaster. Mara's eyes locked on his. If you really believe that, go outside and see what's coming. The silence that followed was an agreement, but no one volunteered to prove her wrong. She took a step forward, her boots leaving no mark on the inlaid crest. You thought you could take what's mine and hide behind your walls. You don't understand. Walls are invitations. Cages are just puzzles with teeth on the other side. The Chancellor's fingers tightened on the arms of their seat. You think this is strength? To unleash wild things into our capital. Not strength, Mara corrected. Leverage. Strength is when you don't need to show your teeth. This, she nodded toward the doors where the distant thump of movement echoed, is just me making sure you're listening. A guard burst into the chamber, breathless. 3 juveniles, human, spotted in Maintenance Sector Delta. There with one of the specimens from the Predator wing. It's shielding them from the guards. Mara's expression didn't change, but her gaze softened almost imperceptibly. Good girl, she murmured. The Chancellor turned sharply. Explain this. When my children were younger, Mara said, I worked with wildlife rehabilitation on Earth. Big cats, wolves, bears, animals your empire would call dangerous. We learned something you apparently haven't. Anything will defend what it sees as part of its pack. Vorketh's jaw worked. You bonded our research specimens to them? I introduced them, Mara said. That was enough. Predators know their own. The distant thump became a closer, heavier rhythm. The guard stances faltered. Someone's weapon clattered against the floor before being hastily recovered. The Chancellor's gaze cut between the doors and Mara. Call them off. Mara's eyes stayed on the entryway. You don't tell the sea to stop rising. You don't tell a storm to turn around. But you can choose not to stand in the flood path. The first shape filled the doorway in a shadow that made even the tallest guard seem diminished. It was all muscle and precision, black fur rippling over shoulders taller than a man, eyes catching the chamber's light with a reflection that made them look molten. It didn't roar. It didn't need to. It just looked at the council, then at Mara, and stepped inside with deliberate grace. Vorketh's weapon came up, but the Chancellor's hand snapped out. No. The Predator padded forward until it stood beside Mara, its head level with her own. She laid one hand on the ridge between its eyes, not as an owner, but as an equal. My children, Mara said, now. A second shadow moved into the doorway, smaller, quicker, and then they were there. The eldest first, moving with careful control. The 8-year-old next, his eyes flicking over the room like a combat veteran scanning for threats. The youngest, hand on the thick fur of another predator, walked between them. The tension in the room became something else entirely. No longer disbelief, no longer even fear, but the recognition of a shift in power, so complete it could not be undone. Mara crouched briefly, her hands brushing each child's shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. They didn't smile, they just nodded, as if they'd expected no less. Vorketha's voice was low and hard. "You won't make it off this station alive." Mara straightened, her eyes meeting his with the steadiness of someone who'd already measured the distance between them and decided he wasn't worth the bullet. "I already have." The Chancellor rose, their long frame unfolding with the slow inevitability of a decision being made. "If you walk out of here, you'll have made an enemy of the Empire." "You took my children," Mara said. "We're already enemies." The predators shifted, reading the room with the same instinct their human counterpart had. The guards near the door eased back half a step without realizing it. No one wanted to test which would move faster, the human or the beasts. Outside the chamber, the alarms took on a new tone. Evacuation orders. The breach wasn't just in the predator wing anymore. Whatever Mara had set in motion was spreading, finding new seams to push against, forcing the Empire to choose between containing her and saving their own capital. The Chancellor's voice was sharp now, the veneer of control fraying. "What do you want, Mara Keen?" "Nothing you can give me," she said. "Just the understanding that this was the last time." "Or what?" "Or I stop bringing them home, alive." It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. The quiet weight of it landed harder than any roar. The predators began to move, forming a loose perimeter around the children. Mara walked at the center, every step deliberate. The guards shifted to block the exit, but the Chancellor's raised hand froze them in place. "Let her go," they said. Vorketha's head snapped toward them. "Chancellor." "Let her go," Erithis repeated, each word an iron bar falling into place. "And pray she doesn't come back." The walk to the docking bay was a corridor of parted ranks. The predators moved without aggression, but no one mistook their composure for safety. Mara kept her gaze forward, her children flanking her with the same quiet discipline she carried. When they reached her ship, she turned once, meeting the Chancellor's gaze across the length of the bay. "You think you've seen what we are," she said. "You haven't." The hatch closed. Engines rumbled low, then rose into the steady, confident hum of a vessel with a pilot who'd never lost a trail. The ship lifted, rotated, and cut away into the black. In the council chamber, long after the echoes faded, Erithis remained standing. "She'll be a problem." Vorketha's voice was tight. "She's a threat." The Chancellor's gaze stayed on the empty doorway. "No, she's a warning." Out in the void, Mara's children strapped in without being told. The predators settled near the rear bulkhead, their eyes half closed in the satisfied calm of a hunt concluded. Mara took a pilot's seat. Stars spilled across the viewport like cold fire. "You were right," the eldest said quietly. "They weren't ready for you." "They never are," Mara said. She eased the throttle forward, the ship stretching into the stars. For a long moment, the only sound was the steady hum of the engines. Then the youngest spoke, voice small but certain. "They'll leave us alone now." Mara's hands stayed steady on the controls. Not twice. Somewhere far behind them, in the capital they'd just left, the alarms were still sounding. But they weren't warnings anymore. They were acknowledgments, long unbroken notes that told every listener what the Empire now knew. The worst thing you could do was make a human mother hunt you.